Hello, welcome to this video. My name is Allie with A. Marie Speaks, and this is sort of a welcome but also a quick introduction, I guess, to sequential growth. I'm going to be, showing and following suit through my course book here. So that's why I'm kind of saying this is a two-part video, because I think I will include this as sort of a welcome video, a more personalized, sort of less professional, not really part of the course, but sort of like the very first thing that will be offered to go along the first video with the course set that will go with the course book. So if you have the course book, thank you so much for your interest and for your purchases. If you have the free PDF, wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the information and for having an interest in learning about it. I am not going to do the whole screen share and get into actually going through any of the material in the course book in this video. I'm going to just sort of maybe, flip through it a little for people who are watching live and this video is coming out. Right after the sneak peek, I did a quick scroll through of just the PDF file. I'll put that in the description or in the comments too, in case you missed that. You can see that better images probably on that video if you're interested. But what I want this kind of welcome video to be a little bit of preliminary learning, so that we could understand and all have a base level concept before even starting at the course, because there's so much depth available. I really want people to be prepared, so they can venture off confidently, So this is sort of my attempt at a brief explanation of what exactly I'm talking about when I say sequential growth. Most of us are familiar with numerology. My own version that I'm offering here in the working, I'm not, laying claim to anything in here or saying that it's of my own sort of personal inspiration and it needs to have a copyright or whatever and I own the content. But what I am trying to offer and have people hear and understand that it did come through the distortion of me. I did bring this content forth. It is an accumulation of many, many years of different types of work and seeking through an avenue of sciences, metaphysical and traditional even. And I don't feel like I own any of this content. I feel like this content is organic information, it's truth, knowledge. And we all deserve to have it, deserve to understand and feel it, and then incorporate it in our own lives and make it true for us. Sometimes I feel numerology, much like all those astrology kind of tools, can be manipulated and highly negatively oriented in a self-serving kind of segregated purpose, where we only use them and look at them in these really fragmented ways. And sometimes it's a very traditional standard teaching way as well. I generally don't find myself following suit with a lot of that stuff. I like to use those things as guidelines, but I don't ever see something outside myself and then correct my own inner ideas to something that I've seen offered as an explanation or as a definition or working out there. And so, yeah, the content in here is unique to me, and it is of my sort of organization together, but I'm by no means like claiming ownership to the information. And as I say, in the course book itself, it's really meant for you to unlock sort of the levels and understanding within you anyways. So numerology, I broke this into two parts for a reason, because we have numerology, which I put compatibility charts as well. You know, things that have to do with the dates of birth and or you know markers of dates that or numbers of places, you know, things that have standard kind of trademarks that would be called to use numerology to interpret. You know, that kind of stuff is a lot discussed in part 2, and it goes through, you know, really not just what a chart is and just a basic chart, because there's many different charts, there's many different names for the different calculations, and I didn't go into the name using gematria or using any of that to calculate your name and your destiny and all that kind of stuff, which is actually a really big part of traditional marketed mainstream numerology. You know, they do the life path and then they want to do the destiny name for your name as well. And I personally, I understand about gematria, and I do appreciate a lot of its value and things like that, but also much like the traditional ways to interpret numerology, I think there's control mechanisms installed in those teachings, and I just prefer to kind of sense what I feel are distorted restrictions or manipulated practices within it, and sort of back out of those and not really take them into my concept of the numbers, my concept of the understandings, or the calculations, or the reduction and dilutions. I talk a lot about reduction and dilution and the ways in which a number condenses down into itself. Even for beginners, I think this is so crucial of a working. A lot of times for beginners or people who just get numerology, it's just bam, that single digit, reduce it down, reduce it down. And traditional numerology is a lot like that too. They really want that single digit. And yeah, the single digit has obviously the marker of the beginning and end goal here. You know, it's the linking point between where we're going and how we're going to get there and what it is. But the way, the journey is told in the number and also in the way that it breaks down. And that is a little bit more of an intermediate sort of understanding about the how and the whys of the ways that it does that. But to know, as you're getting started even in it, that it does make a difference and it does matter, and to just start noticing and watching the ways different numbers combine into single digits and the results that you see played out within those combinations. It's sort of like, you know, learning to cook without a recipe book, without any sort of instructions, where you kind of just throw the things together and taste it, and then you see what it tasted like, and then you have that, you know, you've written down the amounts and the ratios that you've used, and that's that. And then you kind of see what you're coming up with, how those final dishes, you know, have come together in different ways for different, and have a different taste. Personal numerology is wonderful. It's multifaceted. Going to definitely, obviously, of course, part 2 is all about it. But I feel it's very important that we start with what I'm calling sequential growth. And it's sort of a merging of this sort of esoteric, kind of metaphysical, kind of woo-woo numerology, beliefs and understandings about numbers and their meanings, and intermingling and bringing together mathematics, basic growth patterns, pattern recognition, things like phi and the golden ratio, how we have a momentum that can be actually created and self-sustaining, and that's provable mathematics. Also, how we have balancing happening with mathematics, in an evening out that we have showcased in math, not just in things like, you know, chemistry, where we have a basic, you know, that's obvious balancing happening, but even in those basic arithmetic models where we start to learn about adding and subtracting, you know, adding even and odd together, and how an even and an even makes an even and an even and an odd, you know, all of these little rules, these intricate mathematical laws, they play huge roles actually in the blueprint of our numerology, how our numbers come together and what they do when they come together. They work with the laws of math. It's universal, it's beautiful, it's much like music, and it's tied into everything, in all the spectrums. And that's much later. But just like I said, at this beginner's time, it's so important, I feel. I wish I had kind of had this pep talk at the start, like understanding I'm a scuba diver and we're out in the middle of the ocean, and understanding the great gravity of the immense exploration available to me. And also the tools available to me, understanding breath work, understanding what the purpose is that I'm doing and why I'm going down there, and also the physicality of how I move the body, how I swim, how I'm exposed to different risks down there, and also how you can be more freer, and how there's, different, just total different experiences down there. And you need to have you need to swim. It's totally different than walking up on land. I wish I had kind of, had a better grasp on and humble placement and set and setting to understand the great gravity of what I was getting into, instead of just thinking that they were a bunch of little tools on a table that I'm here like an alchemist, and I'm picking up these tools and using them to my advantage. And I'm the much bigger, greater world, and I'm making these tools work for me, and they are working in my world. It's very opposite the role, actually. We're very humbly working as a beautiful organic cog within a beautiful organic whole, ever-changing, flowing, fractal growth, exploration of manyness here. Infinity seeking itself, God seeking to know itself better. And there's patterns and there's flow. There's things that go and things that don't. And there's things that happen much outside of the individual first person's control or observation. We have great cycles and great placements that remind us of that there's things much greater than us, right? That we are this humble little sailor on a giant boat on the giant ocean, with much more of these large external influences happening, and we're working with them and co-creating and living in them with them in a conscious way, right? Versus the other way of thinking that you're some kind of magician at a table tinkering around with tools and creating something in front of you that's, that's smaller than you, that's impacting a world that you have great gravity in. That's my hopes to have as an initial kind of perspective when we get into learning, and as the eternal student, that's the try to have that perspective myself always. That's why I talk a lot about teach learning cycles, and about getting out of this sort of teacher-student pillared view where I have more knowledge than you and I'm just telling you down about what I know so that you can come up to how I know about this thing. Instead we just sovereignty, we each know what we know, but we're on sovereign ground and we're sharing different information. And yes, I'm sharing what I know, but I'm also learning back 2 times greater through your learning and interpretation and your comments back on the material, versus what I'm learning, what I've already known about the topic to try to teach you. Because the topic itself is ever-changing, numerology is ever-changing, every topic is ever-changing. But school and teaching has got stuck in this crazy stagnant, slave master cycle, of course, because it's infringed on by a negative overlay, and it forces everything to work in its sort of manner of productivity and its sort of rules of hierarchy. And that's not the only way that organic grows. And here in sequential growth, and here by learning this sequential growth pattern, you will observe, oh yeah, there is greater law. There is this actual real model that all things grow through. And you'll start to notice the negative alignment and those things that are infringed upon and that are not operating positively with a good feel and with good momentum are designed to do that. And then how you can just not engage in those things and do things that feel better for yourself. Not force things to grow through the model when they don't belong there, when they're unhappy through the growth, and that's another reason why I love to teach the sequential growth model, and also do it before numerology, because understanding how organic growth actually happens and accepting change as a model for every day, for sort of change within staying the same, right? It's a paradox that we need to learn to juggle mentally, physically, and spiritually. And sequential growth can really help us to understand how that makes that possible. And I'll use here at the very beginning for anybody who is brand new and who hasn't seen any of my previous sort of numerology math videos, or talking about sort of the overall makeup and spirit layer and all that. What I really mean in an example here is that we have numbers, obviously, 1 through 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And it's very, you can learn to count. And what is really actually happening when you get the capacity to learn about numbers a little greater, right, is that it's not just 1, 2, 3, but it's 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, 1.9, and then 2. And then we could say like half is 1.5, right? And that's basic, basic knowledge, right? The whole happening, right, is the number 1. And all of the counting happening 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, it's change, but it's a repetitive sort of in the same context and category of change and happening, because it's still the number 1. But there's a multitude of variety available just in counting between 1 and 2. Yeah, 1 and 2 seem to be whole separates and just things on their own, and they are very much, and they contain whole learnings. That's why we have 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, all the way out into 1.9 and then 2. And if you so choose, and if there's more there, you can add zeros. And they find more available counting and discovery, spread out the 1 and 2 counting even more, right? And at any time, even if you've been sort of measuring on that ruler and you've been counting, just 1.1, 1.2 all the way out, and you get 1.8, you could start counting 1.81, 1.81, 1.82, 1.83, 1.84, 1.85, and like making these tiny distinctions that are even more defined. They're closer to the 1.9, but they aren't even 1.9 yet. Or say you're on the cusp of getting to 2, but you're not ready yet. So you put 1.09. And all of a sudden, now you have a whole other place value added of infinite exploration, which is what the 0 really is, right? It's adding depth for more exploration, whether diving down micro when we're adding in the zeros, beforehand and making a number smaller, or whether we're adding gravity and making the number larger, and we're looking longer view, we're looking out there at bigger life, longer life patterns, bigger years, greater gravity. I'm using this as an awake concept of an influence, of having a notion of pulling and consciousness to it. Not the Newtonian sort of I'm stuck to the ground model. But that is how we could start to understand, and sequential growth teaches us how one thing can be one thing and yet ever changing, and it still holds the same kind of theme and model and archetype, and yet it's flowing and changing through different things. And what is it flowing and changing through but the same exact model always, the same growth pattern that we see. Even we have, and I show it in the sequential growth model here in the circle, right? And everybody's seen this probably, just the way. And this is literally how your cell grows, how a human would divide its cells, And we have beautiful different math for each of these different shapes that the coming together of 4 circles makes, of 3 circles, of 5 circles, the seed of life, right? Of 6 circles in the flower of life. And, we have beautiful 7, and just the harmonics of the 8. And the completion with the boundaries ignited here in 9, showing the outer limits, right? And then, of course, I just have a beautiful non-shaped here star circle showing infinite potential. That model, life grows through, cells grow through, plants grow through. Every organic functioning of life is modeled through something similar to that. And what I've done sort of with sequential growth is broke it down, and I have like a whole little, I think I might have even already shared this sort of in a sneak peek in a PDF so that you could really read it. I know it's small, it's print here, but I have a whole sort of explanation about what it means and why I'm calling it sequential growth. And so feel free to check that out and read that completely. But for the video here, I just wanted to go through the quick model just a little bit, and then obviously I'm going to do a video on every number. We'll talk about the whole in depth more, because I'll just show quickly, like understanding the pathways about how numbers have 3 choices in their stage, how they can either ascend, they can stay and stagnate and collect more energy in their number and explore their exact number, or they can descend down to the number beforehand to collect more information, more hearkening back to the foundation of whatever they were in before, to sort of get fresh eyes into the placement that they're at now. And see how much that makes sense, right? Sequential growth is really based upon this positive systems that I have been talking about throughout my whole system series. But it's about information, transactions, and that's all different kind of information, right? These exchanges of energy being allowed and always open channels for any direction of exchange. Whether you choose to stay and explore more, there's infinite amounts, like I said, about staying in the number 1 and just adding zeros in there and always kind of exploring the number 1 before you ever get to 2 by adding in zeros in different numbers. Or, whether it's understanding that you are ready to move forward and that you are sort of transitioning and becoming more aware of that next step about what's to come. And nothing, is that there's nothing good or bad about that. It's just that you're ready to move forward, that you have next things to do. Or about recognizing that perhaps you rushed through certain things before, or you missed certain things, or that perhaps the reason that you need to explore more, right now is because you rush counted through certain of those phases in the numbers before, and maybe that connects you back, and you can go and sort of solidify and make stronger those previous almost cracks or weaknesses in the stages by having that next stage future sight to the hindsight. And that makes the project stronger, that makes it better, and it's going to make your momentum and the end goal and the 9 in completion better, knowing itself more clearly. So why should we ever look down or feel embarrassed or shameful or have these weird sort of guilt things put upon us when we need to repeat something, or we need to go back to something, or we descend? I really am trying to get away from the sort of good, bad, positive, negative, good boy, bad boy kind of things that go along with moving forward or descending. Because in a positive, free-flowing structure, we should be able to move in all directions at any time. Whatever feels right is good, allowed. Okay, go with it. Get what you need out of it, and then let's go to the next thing. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to get through here. And I also talk a little bit about understanding the model as a whole and how all stages and all of those things really benefit the overall whole, right? And so what does the kind of whole look like? And every stage goes through this counting, right? I showed you the circles, and I'll show the other templates. I have some free templates at the back too that are really great to help people interact with the material and learn it on your own, But I have this that really shows sort of the basic stages that everything goes through. And even like I talked about the example of the 1 counting into 2, I'm really sorry about the light fading in and out. It's kind of like a partially cloudy day, and it's driving me crazy. I hope it's not driving you guys crazy. But even 1 counting into 2 and then 2 into 3, it builds through its own of these stages, but it will stay in the category that and topics that resonate with the 1. And so what is 1? 1 is the initial idea, right? It's a new idea, new input. 2 becomes opposition, comparison, partnerships, right? So once you have a first thing, you have the initial idea, the 1, you get it going. What comes next but to compare it to others? What is the opposite of it? Why is it it? And what else is actually like it? Does other things function like it? What makes it like it, right? This is what the 2 is all about, comparing those 2 types of differences. And once you get a gist of what those kinds of things are and which ones they're like, which ones they're not, and why, we move into phase 3. And phase 3 is the creativity, putting your own tailor fitting on the thing, making it your own, really adding those artistic flares or those personal imprints that go along with the creation that makes it really yours. It distinguishes it from those that are kind of like it, and it probably even more distinguishes it from those that it's opposite of, right? It's trying to make its standpoint. As it makes its standpoint and gets to know itself, it moves into 4, which is stable growth. The 4 pillars. It is the square. It is the building and the foundation of laying of the house. This is this. It's been here for a while. We're going to build up on it. It's stakes in the ground and it's truths. 5, of course, comes in, let's test it. Oh, you've put stakes down. How good are they? Disruptions, catalysts. Could be, the storm that hits the house or whatever. They always come and they're there, and they're meant to be there. And, it's an unforeseen issue or an upset. It's a surprise. It's anything. And it can be, sometimes they can be typically shown as negative and really harped on as being bad things, like in the tower and all this stuff can really see it's like all these collapses. But really the 5's point is to strengthen. The purpose of the shakeups, the purpose of the storm or the falling is because it wasn't a firm foundation. If it falls apart at 5, your 4 was pushed through. And maybe we do this, and I talked about this a little bit, but I'll give an example, right? If you've had kind of a not great idea through 1, pushed it uncomfortably through 2, forced your way into 3, kind of like, oh, didn't have too much or whatever happened, you're meeting a lot of creativity stagnation, or you're copying or infringing on others through creativity. You can't even make it through that process on your own, so you just jam somebody's idea and template on it and call it, and you try to get into 4 and really force it, and there's a lot of things that you're hiding from and that's not honest and true for you through 4, but you're trying to fake stability and make it look good, and then 5 comes and crumbles it all down. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes it's just a shake up and it takes you back, like I said before, and you can go into the foundation and reform the cracks and build stronger, up to be better. And that 5 really brings you into 6, which is the perseverance stage, which is making it through the storm, which is the reaffirming of foundations, the correction of, fixing that couple of broken windows or whatever that happened during the storm in the house metaphor, right? And knowing your house is stronger, your skill set's better, you weathered it, you've learned so many lessons through it, you said that these type of windows were no good, let's get this kind now, or whatever the case is, right? You've picked up sort of lessons from that catalytic 5 that come into 6 and that strengthen you. And once you go through 6 for a while and you learn a bit of more wisdom points and experiential knowledge and troubleshooting in a real way, in a tangible way, and in a mental way, and then in a spiritual way, you start to really get the whole of what's happening and why. You're in 7. 7's bigger view. 7's that higher view of, oh yeah, all that happened for a reason, and now I have this great mastery, and it's turned into this, and wow. And maybe you want to share it with others, or maybe you want to show people who are coming into 4 and 5 not to make mistakes you did, or maybe you're just full of great new ideas. 7's a great stage for reflection, teaching, knowledge, mastery, all that kind of stuff. And with that and through that comes 8. 8 is the karmatic repercussions, the retribution of all. So people come and say, oh, I love the way you taught me that, or thank you for sharing that information, or wow, your service has really brought me this, this, and this. Thank you so much. Or maybe it's a financial payment in some kind of way that comes through. 8's all about the sort of the retribution that comes back from the service you've offered. or the work of the process you've already initiated. You know what I mean? It's the doing of the work. And it's how it interacts with the other too. It's very much now turning external view. Before it was more of an internal view and it's become an inner process. But through 7, we get the higher sight and we get more of an external view. And through 8 comes in the real external working. You know, now we have the figure 8, we have the infinity sign, and we have the power of the external torpedo really active and available to us, to where we can look at and responsibly interact with others, and to start learning about polarity and about exchanges and how we collect a charge and how your service does good work and it can be aligned positively and freely to all others, or it can be segregated and self-aligned and restricted, or restricted into a certain external alignment, and then, you know, be and segregate others in a certain way. And either way is an operation of the tools, and it just depends on how you choose to use them. That's big with the 8. The overall big picture views, you know, come back. And interlinking again with the 8 comes your locking in your original intention with the number 1. You know what I mean? Remembering why you're on the big path. Oh yeah, well this big path, this ending, this thing I started as a brand new idea is coming to an ending soon. What am I going to do next? Sort of hearkening in comes in. And as that starts to, what am I going to do next? And oh yeah, every beginning's a new ending. Here we're at 9. And 9 is really that completion stage where you're like, oh yeah, thresholds, endings, new beginnings. What does this mean? How do I interact with the other? Oh yeah, there is all tons of other out there. What is other? Do I want to go do a totally different new other thing? Or am I ready to graduate into, say, number 10 and bring my whole concept into a really graduated 10. Number 1, I am this with a 0. I have all potential next to me to do a million new things as this one thing that I am. And I am this one thing. And that's what 10 really signifies. And that's how 10 moves into 11. And that's the I am this thing, but I'm examining through new idea. That new idea will build into a great concept. Like 12 is that comparison of partnerships and bringing partners and opposition into your great idea, and how can you share that great idea with another. And then we get into 3, and that brings in the creativity portion of it, and a lot of times it comes with the childlike trying to share the 1, and they're fighting between each other because they both want the 1. You know, and that 13 can be a very catalytic tearing apart of the 4, because it tries to reduce into 4, but it's a very catalytic way to bring 4 together, 13, because it's like childlike energies trying to share over one thing. You know, it's hard for them to do. But we can grow into 14, and you can make it into 15 and 16. And they all they're going to follow the same pattern of the same exact spiral that we've just known. And will 10 graduate into 20? And that 20 has a higher knowledge. It's a great partnership of all the things that 10 learned through 11 through 19. And like 19 is great thresholds number. Again, it has the 1 with the 9. And so it's kind of like the entrance and the exit dancing together. Like there's all possibilities and potentials available in 19. So yeah, this has been my little introduction to sequential growth. I've kind of brought us through the whole structure. Sorry, just trying to fix my light so that it doesn't end on like total darkness here. Really 5 lights on, but it is what it is. But learning how everything flows through this kind of growth pattern, and learning how to recognize the organic choices available. I made this breakdown sheet, you know, and I'll circle back to this quickly here for the end, just to sort of solidify what I just, you know, talked about and started with. I should have probably put place markers and tabs on this before I started. That's something I'm going to definitely do for the series. So this is like the template that I've made for you to work through yourself with a blank model. So you put your middle stage here, the ascending and the descending, and it has some comparisons and time for you to think about all of them, each as a stage, and to harken back to their stages here in, you know, the growth model learning section at the front. not just the page that I've done, as an example here with number 5, 4, and 6, but also to each number, the number that you feel like you're in, and the number that's before it that comes with the page. And you can look at, what is this basic purpose of the position, right? What's the lessons that I was meant to learn? And then I have a couple of bullet points, things that you look for positive growth and typical pitfalls. So you could say to yourself, okay, check off, I'm in this pitfall, or I'm in that one, or oh, I didn't think of this way to move forward, and feel free, and I love, that's why I gave blank slates and everything. Add your own in there, and things that are particular to that one thing you're moving through, because every project might have its own really unique little nuanced sort of definitions that you could add in there that come up for just that one, and it could be the little skeleton key to really unlock whatever, to move forward in a really positive, harmonious way. So don't feel limited by the options in there. They're merely guidance points and starting points for you to take in your own directions and listen to your own inner truths always. So thank you so much for listening to this beginner's sort of walkthrough in sequential growth and in my beginner's guide here. I appreciate your audience so much, and thank you for taking the time to learn this information, and appreciate any comments or replies at any time. Feel free to leave comments if you find this on social media. You can leave them if you'd like other people to read them. That's wonderful. Send me emails. If not, third.i.navigation@protonmail.com. Or you can always find me on my website, amariespeaks.com. And I have a plethora of free information over there, a contacts page where you can send me an email without worrying about what my email is. And I can get in touch with you if you prefer that. Yeah. In the meantime, you can check out all my other videos, or, work on the workbook on your own. Thank you so much again for watching, and I hope to see you next time.